The bridge, though neither long nor wide, is a modest wooden structure stretching over the narrow yet deep divide between past disappointments and future uncertainties. Let me introduce myself. I'm Ethan Caldwell, now 38. I used to be just another guy, but I stood out because I was the husband to 36-year-old Marissa and the father to 12-year-old Daniel and 8-year-old Emily. It's a lovely family setup, though it comes with its financial strains. To fulfill my roles as a husband and father, I worked at Countryman Realtor for 5 years until Jackson Voss bought the company from Franklin Meyer. Real estate wasn't my first choice or even my preferred field. After law school, where I started my career, I had been married to Marissa for 3 years, and she was expecting our first child at the time of my graduation. The job market for young lawyers wasn't great. Marissa's pregnancy pushed me to find a job that could support our growing family. My first job was at a law firm dealing with bank representation during home loan closings. It wasn't the career I dreamed of, but it was a job. While I was in law school, Marissa worked as a bank teller to support us. Her paycheck covered our rent and other essentials, while I took on part-time work to bring in extra money. My education was financed by loans and scholarships, with the hope of eventually working for the Department of Education. Marissa's pregnancy meant I had to take the job offer, marking the start of many compromises in married life. Back then, banks provided loans directly to home buyers for purchasing homes, a job considered respectable for lawyers. My role involved handling transactions for house flipping on behalf of lending institutions. During mortgage closings, buyers paid the bank a $500 commission for my services. The law firm received this fee, plus an additional $500 from the insurance company. Each successful closing meant earning a solid $1,000 when the deal was done. Naturally, the firm made a profit, and I got a small portion of it as my salary. But as the saying goes, all good things must end, and frugality often gives way to greed. Shortly after Marissa gave birth to our second child, the banking landscape began changing. Small banks were merging into larger ones, which were then swallowed by even bigger banks. Retail loans became obsolete, and banking shifted to wholesale operations on an industrial scale. Every morning I faced a pile of mortgage paperwork to handle for same-day closings. While profits likely surged, the hectic pace of closing multiple deals simultaneously left me uneasy about how sustainable this model was. Over my 7 years as a lawyer, I never made partner, but did achieve the respected status of a private contractor, earning $75 per closing. Closing 7 or 8 loans a day, 5 or 6 days a week, provided a decent income. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that this setup was on borrowed time. Franklin Meyer, or Franklin as he preferred, approached me seeking someone with legal expertise to help expand his company, Countryman Real Estate. With his main contract moving to the Sunbelt, Franklin was looking to grow. His company had stakes in the Scarlet Woods development, with 100 approved lots and plans for 400 more. Located just 2 miles from a tech park with 2,000 high-tech jobs on the way, Franklin, a builder-developer, was skilled at securing financing for growth projects. However, he struggled with marketing to homeowners looking for upgrades or adjustable-rate mortgages. Oddly enough, when Franklin and I first met, everything just clicked. I excelled at selling houses and was meticulous with the paperwork. Drawing from my previous experience, I introduced profit center strategies, boosting Franklin's sales by leveraging partnerships with home insurance agents, movers, gardeners, and more. We quickly evolved into a full-service agency with one clear goal: to maximize home sales and capitalize on associated services. Franklin wasted no time launching construction projects while I managed the day-to-day operations. He handled the big deals, and I took care of the smaller ones, earning a good salary as his trusted employee. Franklin was aware of the looming crisis. Bear Stearns was a warning sign, but the collapse of Lehman Brothers was the real trigger. Despite the impending disaster, Franklin remained optimistic, convinced that real estate would bounce back. As the market crashed, Franklin stayed upbeat, believing in its eventual recovery. I focused on making the most of every chance, channeling profits into larger, more lucrative rural properties as part of Franklin's investment strategy. Franklin had one main concern. He felt like a significant player in a small pond and wanted to dive into something bigger. One evening, over drinks after work, he dropped a bombshell. He'd sold everything. What? Stay calm. The new owner won't shake things up immediately. Once again, Franklin proved right. When I first met Jack Voss, my initial thought was how young he looked. Not yet 30, he was the mastermind behind Franklin's buyout. Jack, towering and younger than me, had a strikingly blonde, Adonis-like appearance that screamed business prodigy. Despite the fact that I should have felt a pang of envy towards this young man, his charm and warmth made it nearly impossible to hold a grudge. Working for him turned out to be quite enjoyable. Franklin, who was nearing 50, was driven but fundamentally cautious. In stark contrast, Jack thrived on openness and taking risks. He operated with everything out in the open, constantly pushing boundaries. It quickly became apparent that his venture into rural property had stretched his finances to their limits. Jack was more interested in financing than construction, and he favored management over sales. He reveled in quick returns, and when the real estate market eventually rebounded, his bet on Countryman Real Estate clearly paid off. Meanwhile, Franklin set off for Florida, enticed by the lure of a grand real estate project. The night before his departure, I wished him well. "Come with me, baby," he urged. "No, I'm not a kid anymore. I've got a wife and 2 teenagers to take care of," I responded. "Okay, but you might regret it someday," he warned. I hoped that wouldn't be the case, but I checked the job market. My old company was a shadow of its former self. Adam Foster, one of the junior partners, managed to survive the collapse. He was pleased to hear from me, but offered only a third of my current salary. So I worked tirelessly to keep Countryman Real Estate afloat. Overall, I was content with Jack. He treated me well and allowed me to manage the office daily. Did I have doubts about him? Yes, but my main issue with the boss was trivial. Franklin never threw a formal Christmas party, but Jack went to the other extreme. He rented one of Saratoga's finest vacation spots, albeit in the off-season, at a steep cost. The party, held on the first Saturday in December, was for staff, contractors, bankers, and realtors. It was an extravagant event with a large guest list. Jack spared no expense. Well, it was his money, and perhaps there was a valid business reason behind it all. My discontent began around midnight and grew as the night progressed. I arrived with the most stunning woman at the event on my arm. I married Marissa right after college when we were both just 22. During my law school years, she worked a dead-end job to support us. I'll always be grateful for that. But she got pregnant by stopping birth control while I was studying for the bar exam. Looking back, the pregnancy might have been a blessing. We've been good parents then, and still are now. While I struggled with renting houses, Marissa raised our kids and worked nights to earn her doctorate in child psychology. When our youngest started school, Marissa returned to work, landing a job at the State Department. She also embarked on what I now call her running career. Marissa, who could be described as chubby compared to some gaunt models, transformed at 30 from a casual swimmer and occasional jogger into a serious long-distance runner. She began waking up early to run 5 miles cross-country and spent every evening sprinting for half an hour. She held the fastest time among local female runners and was only beaten once by national competitors in local 5K and 10K races. She even ran the New York City Marathon 3 times, finishing among the top 100 women. I'm not one to stay at home. I hit the gym at least 3 times a week and bike 20 miles on summer weekends. But with over 5% body fat, I don't exactly boast a Michelangelo-like physique. I supported Marissa in her running pursuits, watching her early morning routines and greeting her sweaty return as I woke the kids. I felt immense pride in her achievements. So when I walked into the Christmas party with this tall, dark-haired beauty on my arm, conversations hushed and heads turned to admire Marissa. Standing just over 6 feet tall in her 3-inch heels, she perfectly matched my height. Her raven hair flowed over her shoulders, gleaming in the ballroom's dim light. Despite her efforts to dress up for the party, Marissa wore a new, form-fitting black dress. The scalloped neckline hinted at her cleavage, and the dress was daringly short, highlighting her long, athletic legs. The dress showcased her flat stomach and sculpted rear, drawing admiring glances. No longer the chubby girl, my wife exuded confidence and elegance. Jack quickly took notice, greeting us and inviting Marissa to dance. While they made a stunning pair, his attentiveness felt a bit too familiar. Just before midnight, he approached her and kissed her passionately under the mistletoe. I wasn't jealous. Yes, my wife was beautiful, but I trusted her. We had faced many challenges together, from law school struggles to raising children and paying off student loans. We had overcome illness and other hardships. I felt sorry for couples who hadn't weathered such trials. Adversity strengthens a marriage. Marissa and I had faced everything together and remained deeply in love. As Marissa enjoyed the attention while drinking, I dismissed it as part of the festive atmosphere. I took her home, and we didn't discuss the incident further. I brushed off the earlier incident as nothing more than the result of too much alcohol. But as Memorial Day weekend approached, marking the halfway point of the year, my resolve would soon be tested. The real estate market had been booming, with an influx of clients filling the company's coffers. The end of May brought record-breaking heat, making it the hottest month in a decade. Our office account was bursting with cash from recent home sales, scheduled to be deposited on the first business day of June. We planned to review the checks and make electronic payments to the banks when we returned from the 3-day weekend. "Are you joining us for the camping trip?" Jack asked one day. He had been raving about the mountain cabin he'd rented in the Adirondacks for Memorial Day. His invitation extended to Marissa and me, but I hesitated. "I'm not sure what Marissa's plans are," I replied, trying to politely decline. "Oh, she's coming. She's really looking forward to it," Jack insisted with confidence. I eyed him warily. "We discussed it on the phone," he added hastily. Why did I doubt him? Yet after he left, I called Marissa. To my surprise, she was enthusiastic about the trip. Reflecting on it now, I realized that this was a crucial moment, one I failed to recognize as a warning sign. My love and trust for Marissa were unwavering. According to MapQuest, the journey to Jack's mountain retreat would be a challenge. I traded in my Honda Accord for a 4-wheel drive SUV at the rental agency. The final 20 miles were on rugged mountain roads, with the last 3 miles on dirt tracks. Having been to the Adirondacks before, I was familiar with their rugged terrain. Jack's cabin was located southwest of Saranac Lake, and the drive took nearly 4 hours. The GPS guided us through the last 5 miles, directing us off the main road onto a narrow, semi-paved road that led to a sturdy wooden bridge. Though narrow, the recently renovated bridge spanned a deep ravine, a typical feature of the Adirondack Mountains, known for their wild, untamed beauty. I crossed the bridge cautiously, wondering if there might be another route. Despite the GPS showing no alternate paths, I felt like a mouse trapped in a snare, wary of what might lie in wait. After a grueling drive, we arrived at a 2-story house perched on a mountainside, about 1,000 feet below the summit. The area was framed by a dozen majestic Adirondack peaks to the north. The remote location, where what seemed to be a rustic cabin stood, was immaculate. I parked the SUV in a meticulously maintained lot next to 3 similarly upscale vehicles. Everything was pristine and well kept. The cabin itself embodied a blend of modern and traditional design, evoking the charm of a 19th-century mountain retreat with all the comforts of contemporary living. It was clear Jack had spared no expense to create this illusion of rustic luxury. I couldn't help but feel that his opulence was aimed at impressing someone other than me. We were greeted on the expansive porch, adorned with Adirondack chairs and rustic decor, by a group of 6 individuals. Among them were Jack and 2 of his college friends. Ryan Bishop, the shortest of the group at about 510, had a muscular build reminiscent of a weightlifter and was in his late 20s. His rugged appearance was emphasized by his tight t-shirt and shorts. Derek Harper, the second college friend, stood around 6 feet tall with curly blonde hair. He seemed more refined compared to Ryan, with his arm around a striking woman named Melissa. Melissa, likely in her early 30s, was curvaceous with an ample bust and appeared about 10 years older than Derek. Next to Ryan was Rachel, a younger woman with a bubbly demeanor, short stature, and a curvaceous figure that seemed out of proportion with her petite frame. The final member of the group, Vanessa Graham, stood tall with flowing brown hair. She was one of those strikingly beautiful women with sharp, intelligent features. Clearly the youngest among the women, Vanessa was a schoolmate of the boys. Despite the warm and overly enthusiastic welcome, something felt off. Jack's greeting of Marissa was especially effusive, while I received a more perfunctory acknowledgement. Meanwhile, Vanessa scrutinized me with the intensity of a scientist examining a specimen. Dinner arrangements were quickly made, and we hurried to stow our belongings in our second-floor bedroom, adjacent to Jack's master suite. We gathered in the grand great hall, a combined living room, dining area, and game room for dinner. Gourmet microwave meals were served around a grand oak table, a stark contrast to the rustic setting of the cabin. As we settled in, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. Though the food was delicious, it was clear it came at a steep price with minimal effort. Wine flowed freely, and I made a point to control my intake, mindful of my host's persistent attempts to refill our glasses. After dinner, the group gathered around the gas fireplace on the terrace, where potent drinks and some herbs emerged, setting the tone for a weekend of revelry and mild indulgence. As I navigated through the evening with careful observation, what initially seemed like a typical holiday weekend with my boss and his entourage took on a more complex and unsettling undertone. It quickly became evident that Rachel had a fiancé elsewhere, while Melissa was married with 2 children and a husband waiting back home. Infidelity was treated with a casual disregard and even humor. Vanessa, however, remained fixated on me, seeming detached from the group's antics. Although she was aligned with Jack, she showed no signs of offense at his overt flirtation with my wife. Throughout the evening, Jack positioned himself primarily between Marissa and Vanessa, directing most of his attention towards Marissa. My attempts to engage Vanessa were met with polite but distant responses, suggesting she preferred minimal interaction. As midnight approached, the guests, still in high spirits, seemed ready to retire for the night, but an unspoken anticipation lingered. Jack turned to me, acknowledging my likely fatigue from the drive. "Ready for bed, Ethan?" he asked. Marissa, sensing my discomfort, suggested, "Maybe we should head to bed." I jokingly insisted on another drink, offering it to Jack, though inside I was fuming at his relentless attempts to seduce my wife and questioning Marissa's behavior. Was she genuinely interested in him? The night dragged on, but I eventually felt victorious when we returned to our assigned room. Marissa entered the shower alone, and I refrained from joining her, recognizing it was pointless. When she emerged, she sat on the edge of the bed, undressed, and invited me to join her. "I want to enjoy this weekend," she said, reflecting on our difficult past and acknowledging my unwavering support. "You've been an exceptional partner and parent, sacrificing for my education and nurturing our family. Your dedication hasn't gone unnoticed. I'm proud to be your wife." The morning sun streamed through the open blinds of our spacious bedroom. Normally, Marissa would rise much earlier for her morning run, but last night's indulgence had taken its toll. I got out of bed, pulled the curtains shut, and headed to the compact bathroom, which, despite its size, boasted ample amenities. After a quick shower and shave, I ventured downstairs before anyone else was awake, hoping to explore the surroundings in peace. I moved from the main room to a patio featuring a fire pit and a built-in outdoor BBQ. Then, I wandered onto a raised terrace with a small pool and sauna. Despite the chilly spring climate, the open water feature was surprisingly heated, thanks to solar panels on the mountain's higher slopes. Continuing my exploration, I came across what appeared to be a small barn. Although it housed no animals, it was stocked with ATVs, snowmobiles, and gardening tools, including several small tractors. As I passed by, I heard the distant sound of a babbling stream. About 20 yards behind a locked barn with a chimney protruding from its roof, I glimpsed through a small window and saw a generator and fuel tanks. It was clear that meticulous care was taken to ensure gasoline was available for recreational vehicles and emergency power. This place felt like its own secluded world, prepared for any scenario. The stream, though small and shallow, was lively. I was lost in thought when a voice interrupted me. "Are you fishing?" I turned to find Vanessa standing behind me. "Not today, but I used to when I had more free time." "Seems like this weekend might offer you that chance. Are you into fishing?" I asked. "No, like you, I don't have much time for it. Maybe we could have breakfast and then take a hike up the mountain. It'd be a shame to come all this way and not reach the summit," she suggested. Vanessa made coffee in the stainless steel maker, while the kitchen pantry offered microwave-ready breakfast options. I chose instant oatmeal, noting that none of the others had stirred yet. They'd likely sleep in. "How about that hike?" Vanessa asked with a smile. With Vanessa clearly knowing the trail's beginning, she led us straight to it. Initially, the summit didn't seem too far, but after an hour, it felt as distant as when we started. "Are you sure about reaching the top?" I questioned. "Why quit now, old man?" she teased. I'm just thinking about what the others will say when they find us missing. Don't worry, I doubt they'll mind. Finally reaching the summit, the sun was nearly overhead, signaling that noon was approaching. The mountain's summit was surprisingly anticlimactic, a flat expanse surrounded by rounded edges. Two worn wooden benches faced east, providing a view of the gatehouse and distant peaks to the south and east. Although fog obscured the far-off sights, the air was refreshingly crisp. Vanessa settled on one of the benches, looking pleased to take in the view. Mind if I join you? I asked, hoping to rest before the trek back down. Of course, take a seat. We both deserve a break, she replied with a smile. As I sat down beside her, I decided to break the silence. So, Derek is a broker, Ryan is a banker, and Jack is a developer. But despite chatting all night, I never caught what you do, I said. Vanessa seemed to deliberate over her answer, considering how much to reveal. I work as an inspector for the government. It's not the most glamorous or well-paying job, she said. Have you ever had to inspect anyone we know? I asked, curious. Not recently. Back in college, I was always covering for them, bailing them out of trouble with angry girlfriends or helping them with exams. They were always living on the edge. That's what makes them who they are, unique and exceptional in their own way, she said. So, is this what you're still doing? Covering for them? Doesn't it seem pointless to lock the barn door after the horse has bolted? You can't get the horse back now. Rules just create obstacles. It's better if talented people get ahead and the rest step aside. That way, everyone benefits according to their merits, I mused. What's your role this weekend, then? You didn't join the party last night, I pointed out. Vanessa looked momentarily thrown by the question. I stood up and walked to a spot where I could see the road leading down the mountain. There was only one route out. Turning back to Vanessa, I scrutinized her. Had she noticed the same things I had? The others seemed oblivious, but Vanessa was sharp. She must see the situation as I did. I'm here as the designated sober one. I keep things running smoothly and step in only when absolutely necessary, she explained. Meaning, unless the Golden Boys need you, I summarized. I wouldn't put it quite like that. But I do prioritize their needs, as well as everyone's long-term interests, she clarified. Shall we head back down? I suggested. What's the rush? Vanessa asked. The descent will be quicker. Yes, quicker, but the slope is steep and could be dangerous. You might fall, I cautioned. Why worry when you're already at the top? She replied, though she stood up and started heading down. We made it back to the lodge without incident, but my anxiety was growing. When we found the others by the pool, I was taken aback by my wife's appearance in a black bikini. It showcased her body in a way I hadn't seen before. The other women were similarly clad. As Vanessa and I approached, I saw my wife seated on Jack's lap, locked in a passionate kiss. We're back, Vanessa announced, interrupting Jack and Marissa's embrace. Jack flashed a mischievous grin, while Marissa's smile seemed forced. Where have you two been? Marissa asked casually, trying to mask the tension. My fists clenched involuntarily, but Vanessa squeezed my hand. Since we missed lunch and conquered the mountain, we deserve some food, Vanessa declared, pulling me toward the cabin. As we left the pool area, I heard muffled laughter behind us. I wasn't sure what Vanessa had prepared, and if I ate anything, I couldn't remember. She handed me a glass of straight black Johnny Walker, which burned as it went down. Think before you act, she advised. It's just one weekend in a marriage. You need to think about your family. Returning to the pool area, the couples were settled in the jacuzzi, laughing and giggling. My wife remained on Jack's lap. I couldn't see their hands underwater, but I suspected they were occupied. A joint was passed around, and it was clear everyone was intoxicated. Vanessa positioned herself between the jacuzzi and me, keeping a watchful eye. I pretended to drink more before slipping away discreetly. Out of sight, I poured out the contents of my glass. It was a mix of jealousy and reluctant pride. I was proud of my wife's transformation from the chubby girl I married into the stunning, athletic woman she had become, desired by others. Yet seeing her with Jack was unsettling. I could vividly imagine their bodies intertwined, a disturbing but strangely captivating image. I wandered around the lodge grounds, observing its operations and trying to distract myself while worrying about the direction things were heading. I realized I might need to take charge of my choices. Entering our bedroom, I tried to sleep, but the question of why my wife was flirting and kissing another man kept nagging at me. We had faced many struggles together, From early financial difficulties to our children's health issues and the constant strain of living on a middle-class income, we were finally starting to stabilize. Our children were becoming independent. Marissa had a steady job, and I was earning well after years of financial hardship. Our debts were manageable, and our future seemed promising. So why risk everything for someone as superficial as Jack Voss? Beneath his charming facade and bold personality, there was nothing of substance. Strip away the glitz and glamour, and what remained was emptiness. Jack had never designed a site plan, built or sold a home. He was merely the public face of a business run by others, a wealthy figurehead with no real substance. What was Marissa thinking? She claimed she just wanted to have fun this weekend. But was this what she considered fun, and how would it all end? I must have dozed off because when I finally made my way downstairs, the main room was already bustling. Lunch had come and gone, but the drinks continued to flow, and joints were circulating. Marissa was once again on Jack's lap, and their kiss from earlier was undeniable. The women had removed their bikini tops, including Vanessa, who seemed to be involved with Ryan while Rachel looked on. I headed straight to the kitchen to microwave some dinner, and Marissa followed me in. "How are you?" she asked. "It could be better," I replied. There was a brief pause before she spoke again. "I spent the evening with Jack," she confessed. "I noticed," I said as the microwave beeped. Marissa gave an odd smile when I turned to take the food out. "No, I mean tonight, in his room." I stayed still, not wanting her to see the pain she was causing. "I see. And what about our 16 years of marriage?" I asked. "That's exactly why I can do this. It's just for the weekend. Next week, I'll be all yours again," she assured me. "And Jack won't mind?" I challenged. Marissa hugged me from behind, resting her head against my back. "Jack likes you. He thinks you two are getting along. It's just a fling, a little fun for the weekend." "Okay?" she said, her words accompanied by gentle hugs. "Can I choose?" I asked. "Not really, it's decided. I'm just letting you know," she replied. She released me and I heard her leave the kitchen. I walked to the opening between the kitchen and the main room. The group was already heading upstairs. Jack glanced back, giving me a thumbs up as if we were on the same page. He whispered something to Marissa, who turned around, waved, and smiled at me. I went back to the kitchen, feeling as if everything we had built together was meaningless. My wife had left me and humiliated me. I threw the food from the microwave away and made myself a cup of coffee. It was going to be a long night. As the water started to boil, I heard footsteps in the kitchen. I turned to find Vanessa watching me. "I didn't expect to find coffee," she said. "Wouldn't something else be better?" "Everyone has their preferences," I replied. "But tell me, what's your role here?" Vanessa shrugged. "I'm just trying to keep things calm." "And how do you plan to do that?" I asked. "By sleeping with me?" She chuckled. "No, I wouldn't go that far, but don't lose hope. You'll get your wife back and maybe even a bonus," Vanessa said. "So there's money involved?" I noted. "Isn't there always?" she replied. "You can't make waves when you work for these people. You have to think about your family. What choice do you have but to accept what's offered? This is their world, not yours. That's just how it is." A loud moan of pleasure echoed from upstairs. Vanessa grinned. "Looks like she's having a good time." "Well, good for her. A perfect weekend in the mountains," I said bitterly. "You know, these mountains have stood here for centuries. Our lives are just fleeting moments for them. Thousands of years ago, they were buried under ice that carved out rivers and gorges. Sometimes we forget how fragile our existence is. Remove one small piece, and the world crumbles. Only then do we realize it's all an illusion," Vanessa said, laughing. "Wow, you're quite the philosopher," I said. "No, just someone who understands what really matters, trying to see the difference between what's genuine and what's fleeting," she replied, probably assuming I wouldn't cause any trouble. She left me alone with my coffee and my thoughts. Around 1 o'clock in the morning, I decided to head upstairs. As I passed the master bedroom door, I was assaulted by loud screams and pleasure-filled moans from my wife. She had always been quiet during our intimate moments, but it seemed Jack brought her a new level of satisfaction. Younger and more vigorous, he excelled in ways I couldn't. It was clear she had found the pleasure she sought in his arms. I showered and dressed warmly, anticipating the cold outside. I tried to block out the noises reverberating through the walls as I waited. By the time silence finally descended upon the house, it was well past 3 in the morning. After waiting another 30 minutes, I ventured downstairs. In the kitchen cabinet, I found a flashlight and candles with matches. I considered it a prudent measure in case the power went out. The night was enveloped in deep darkness, with the moon having already set. The sounds of the mountains felt like silence to someone used to city life. I found a barn and a 20-gallon plastic canister filled with motorsports gas. Nearby was a wrench. Although the generator shed was padlocked, the rusted hinge gave way easily with the wrench. Using the manual gasoline pump, I quickly filled the canister. In less than 10 minutes, I made my way around the lodge to my rented SUV's parking spot. I loaded the gas can into the back of the SUV, released the handbrake, and shifted into drive. Letting the car roll downhill, I started it up and drove off cautiously as I approached the bridge. I carefully navigated the gravel road, making sure the gasoline soaked into the bridge's wooden structure. This was no ordinary bridge. It was a finely crafted piece of work, a testament to the skills of artisans who had taken pride in their craftsmanship. It had been built for the leisure of those who profited from the labor of others. But that leisure was about to come to a fiery end. I dropped the match, watching as it sputtered briefly before catching flame. The fire spread rapidly, and I quickly retreated as the bridge erupted in a fierce explosion of heat and flames. The wooden bridge crackled and collapsed into the inferno, its blaze likely visible for miles. I turned back to the SUV, driving away at a leisurely pace. There was no need to rush. Anyone who saw the fire would be stranded on the other side, and I was confident I'd be long gone before they even realized their predicament. By the time dawn broke, I was at a gas station off the highway, filling up the SUV. I left the empty canister at the pumps, knowing someone would eventually collect it. Any link between the fire and me would soon disappear. After returning the SUV around 9 a.m., I retrieved my car. Following a shower and dressing casually for the office, I had two final tasks to sever my ties with Countryman Real Estate. Franklin, though a good boss, was notoriously forgetful and often left items in his office. With keys to every door and filing cabinet, I had easy access. Jack, known for his meticulousness, kept the combination to his desk safe in a folder labeled Security, stored in a locked closet. Using Franklin's keys, I accessed the safe and retrieved the password diary, allowing me to access the company's personal account. It would have been easy to abscond with everything, but that wasn't my goal. Theft would only lead to trouble. Instead, I transferred the operating account to another. When I joined Countryman, we had established a trust account for deposits as per state regulations. Over time, new trust accounts had been set up for various projects, and the original account was forgotten. Although archived, it wasn't recorded in the ledgers. It remained empty until I transferred nearly $20 million into it. To protect our cash, I bolstered our line of credit, ensuring my actions appeared deliberate and significant. Nothing was stolen. Everything remained intact. However, it would take days to track down and recover the funds. On Tuesday morning, electronic transfers would hit an empty account, halting hundreds of payments. Unsure of the extent of the damage, our reliance on credit left us vulnerable. Removing that lifeline would create significant problems, at least temporarily. Rebuilding Countryman's creditworthiness would be an uphill battle. With any luck, Jack would still be away in the mountains. On Tuesday, once everything was set, I planned to print my resignation letter and leave it on Jack's secretary's desk. Just as I was about to leave, my cell buzzed. Marissa's photo appeared on the screen, but I let it go to voicemail, though I couldn't resist listening. Her voice was filled with worry. "Where are you, baby? The car's missing and I'm worried sick. Call me." About 30 minutes later, Jack called. "Hey, Ethan, you okay? Marissa's freaking out. Call her," he urged, with a hint of threat in his tone. Oddly enough, it amused me. On Sunday, Marissa had called 3 times, and Jack had called twice more, with his messages growing increasingly forceful, insisting I get in touch. Monday morning, I picked up the kids from Marissa's parents. As I left, Marissa called again. "Be home tonight. We need to talk. If you get this call, I'm really worried," she pleaded. "This is childish," she added. I doubted she would return. At her parents' house, they were expecting me. Marissa called once more, saying, "You might be on your own picking up the kids." Her mother urged me to call, while her father suggested waiting until Marissa returned. "There are things we need to sort out," he remarked. Personally, I aim to avoid familial disputes. They weren't pleased, but there was little they could do. My daughter sensed the tension, but I reassured her that this was between Mom and me. We'd discuss it when she returned, to be fair to her. After settling the kids in, I retreated to our old bedroom and dialed Lucas Alvarez. "How's it going, Ethan?" He answered. "Not great," I replied. "Lucas, I need your expertise." Lucas, a top-notch family lawyer and a stand-up guy, listened attentively. "What's going on?" he asked. "I need to file for divorce," I said firmly. We spent the next hour going over the details, scheduling an appointment for late Tuesday to start the process. Meanwhile, the calls from the mountains continued. It seemed Marissa's parents had gotten in touch with her. The tone of their messages shifted. Marissa and Jack reached out without threats. Jack's message was curt. "Hey, if I messed up, I apologize. Let's not let this weekend affect our professional relationship. It wouldn't be good for anyone if you catch my drift." Later, around 5 p.m., Marissa called urgently. "Ethan, please call. Something's happened here. There's no bridge. We're all stuck. Call me. I need to talk." Bright and early Tuesday, I called up Stephen Foster, my old buddy, and we arranged to meet for lunch at a nearby diner. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. Stephen mulled over his meal. "So, it's all set?" he asked between bites. "Yep, done deal," I confirmed. To underscore my point, Donna, my former secretary, called just then. "Ethan, they're saying you've resigned, but you need to come in. Everything's falling apart. Something's seriously wrong," she said, urgency in her voice. "Sorry, I can't help you. I'm no longer with the company. You should contact Jack. He's reportedly stranded in the mountains. Apparently a bridge is out or something." "Tough break," I replied, trying to sound nonchalant. Stephen raised an eyebrow. "Anything else I should know?" "Nope, not my problem anymore," I said. "Well, if you're sure, I think I can increase my last offer by $10,000 a year. Can you start tomorrow?" "Isn't that a bit quick?" "Nope, it's perfect," Stephen insisted. By Wednesday morning, I was officially on board with Pandare and Partners. Just as I was settling in that afternoon, an uninvited guest appeared. "Where's my money? You're a fool." Jack Zello barged in. "What money are you talking about?" I played dumb. "The operating funds. Where are they?" he demanded. "You might want to check with the company accountants," I said, feigning innocence. "If I do that, I'll sue you for embezzlement," he threatened. I merely smiled. "You made it down the mountain, but where are the funds?" Jack's face turned red with anger. "You think you're some big-shot lawyer, but you're just an idiot who can't keep his wife happy. She enjoyed her time with me, and I'll keep her satisfied whenever I want," he spat before storming out. The next day, the police called me in for questioning. "Sorry, I just started a new job and don't have much time. I can respond in writing and call you back," I suggested. The officer explained that wasn't standard procedure, but I insisted, citing my job constraints. After some back and forth, he hung up. I expected the police to investigate the embezzlement claim and trace the money. They'd find it in the company account where I deposited it days ago. I thought that would be the end of it, a civil matter at most, and likely a fruitless one. I was wrong. It took them 2 weeks to track down the missing funds. By then, Countryman was in financial ruin. The banks had cut off its credit, and it needed a substantial capital infusion to get back on track. Friday evening, Marissa showed up with our travel bags. Her key no longer worked because I had changed the locks. I met her at the door. "Please, Ethan, let me in. Think about the kids if not for me," she pleaded. "No, you no longer live here. I parked your car on the street. I assume you still have the keys," I said, closing the door firmly. "Do you hate me that much?" she asked, her voice breaking. "Yes," I replied, shutting the door. I decided she would stay with her parents. I instructed Lucas to serve her with a restraining order and file for divorce. The brief advantage the bridge had given me paid off. With Lucas's help, Marissa was kept away, and I obtained temporary custody of the children. It took her 2 months, likely exhausting all her resources, to get back on her feet. By then, the divorce proceedings were nearly finalized. Jack Zello wasn't as fortunate. Countryman Real Estate had to shut down right after Labor Day. The following week, I had an unexpected visitor. He was waiting in my office when I returned from closing a deal. With a tan and a casual outfit that seemed more suited for a warmer climate, he looked out of place in the autumn chill. "Franklin, what brings you here?" I greeted him, sensing this visit was not a casual one. I'm doing well, considering. Florida's a tough market full of sharks. I thought I'd come back to what I know, he explained. I'm glad to see you back, I said, unsure of his intentions. Franklin seemed to read my unease. I took a hit down there but got lucky with a new venture. I found a company I can buy at a reasonable price, he revealed with a grin. We exchanged knowing looks. So what's on your mind? I asked. I need a partner. At my age, banks doubt any venture I start will last. You and I work well together. What do you think? He proposed. I have very little cash, and you've probably heard about my impending divorce, I said. Yes, I have, he acknowledged, hinting at the gossip circulating. Let's go with 10%, he offered. 50%? Let's be realistic. You said you're tight on cash, but I'll settle for 45%, I countered. 25% is fair, but I'm willing to negotiate. How about 40% and an option to buy another 10% in 10 years? He proposed. All right, let's hope I live to see it, I joked, knowing he'd likely outlive me. Franklin and I were back in business. We acquired all the properties from Countrymen at a discount, using the same bank's funds. The business quickly thrived, building and selling homes. Life moved on, as did the divorce proceedings, focusing on custody and visitation. We crafted a complex joint custody arrangement. That's why I returned to an empty house on Christmas Eve. Marissa had taken the children for Christmas, though I was supposed to have them. Since Christmas was on a Sunday, they had to return to her on Monday, her day off. The kids struggled with this schedule. As I approached the house, I saw a figure sitting on the steps, trying to stay warm in the light snowfall. I reached her before realizing it was Marissa. What are you doing here? I asked, seeing her huddled on the steps. She looked different, thinner, with vacant eyes and an expression of indifference. It was clear she'd been crying. I want to go home, she murmured. Where are the children? I asked, focusing on practicalities rather than her request. With my parents. They want to come home too. We all want to be a family again in our little house. What you did to us is unfair, she said, her voice breaking. I didn't do anything to us, I retorted. Well, that's true. I made a mistake, a big hurtful mistake. But it was just one mistake, she admitted, her voice tinged with guilt. You're the one who tore our family apart, she accused, her anger barely contained. Taking a deep breath, she continued, I promised myself I wouldn't lose my temper, but you need to understand. I struggle with anger because of this. You have anger issues? I asked, genuinely surprised. Don't act innocent, Ethan. That's not who you are. Were you just ahead of the game? I'm not naive. You were never a saint. I know I hurt you, but it was never intentional, she said, her voice filled with frustration. Do you honestly expect me to believe that sleeping with another man in front of me wouldn't hurt? I countered. She turned away, clearly wounded by my words. I watched as she wiped her eyes, her back now turned to me. It was evident she was crying. I was always the overweight one, the last choice at the dance. I had to settle for whoever showed interest. I was a good girl, enduring countless insults. I waited through high school and most of college for the right person. When I met you, I thought I'd found him. I was a maid when we got married. I didn't complain, but I assumed you knew. You weren't a prince then, and you're not one now. You were just an ordinary guy, but I loved you with all my heart. Yes, you were a bit sharper and more ambitious than the rest. But we always struggled financially. I adjusted my expectations because of my love for you. It pained me to see you struggle, she said. Then Jackson came along. Suddenly, everything seemed to improve. He had all the qualities I dreamed of. He was like a prince. After the Christmas party, he kept reaching out to me. It started as harmless flirting, but it was flattering. I'd been approached before, but never by someone so powerful. He spoke highly of you, saying how lucky I was to have you. I thought if I played along with him, you'd benefit. Part of me wanted him. There was this irrational urge pulling me toward him, but when we arrived, my resistance began to fade. I confessed to you, she said. What? Are you serious? You told me you were considering sleeping with him? I was incredulous. Okay, I didn't say it outright, but you knew something was going on and didn't object, she clarified. Tears streamed down her cheeks, dripping from her chin. I trusted you. We've been together for 16 years. How could you betray me like this? She lamented. But that's the heart of it. We loved each other. It was just a fleeting affair. It doesn't compare to what we had or what lies ahead, she said, trying to justify her actions. Are you so deluded that you think we can salvage anything after hearing your cries of pleasure for him? I asked. Oh, for heaven's sake, you can't be that naive. It was all a performance. I aimed to please him. That's not how I act in bed. After 16 years with me, you should know that. All I know is what you did, how you degraded me. You chose the golden boy over me, the one who offers nothing and takes everything. Powerful, isn't it? I said bitterly. So where is he now? What happened when the crisis hit? I demanded. I'll tell you everything. He cracked under the pressure. Our society glorifies a few elite individuals based on some mythical brilliance they possess. Explain to me, how did this genius manage to get off the mountain so quickly? He called for a helicopter. By then, he suspected you'd tampered with the business. It was obvious you'd sabotaged the bridge. He thought you embezzled his funds. The others panicked. Vanessa insisted it couldn't be true. When the helicopter arrived, there was only room for Jack. The rest resigned. I believe the National Guard eventually built a temporary bridge to rescue us. Melissa and I reconciled. Her husband had discovered the truth. She faced consequences just like me. Poor Rachel's fiancé called off their engagement. Glenn and Ryan had trouble, but I think they sorted it out with Vanessa's help. It was just Jack and us who really suffered, she said. Wasn't the pain enough? She asked, looking at me with hope. Her words carried weight. I wasn't entirely blameless. I worked for Jack, yet never aligned myself with him. I knew the truth but refused to face it. I couldn't ignore what happened. It was a series of empty promises. If examined closely, it was a trap, but no one looked. The illusion was more enticing than reality. We endured tough times, and they passed. What you and Jack took from me was the sanctuary of my home. I'll never get it back because you showed me that what I believed in was a mirage. You and I were an illusion. With those words, I stood up and headed for the door of the dark, empty house. Marissa called after me. Answer me this, she implored. Would you rather be alone or have me and our children around the Christmas tree tonight? I gazed at her. It would be easy to embrace her, bring the children back to their beds and pretend nothing had happened. But all I could manage was, that's a valid question, but I don't have an answer. With that, we turned away from each other. The past couldn't be changed. We had to move forward for the sake of our future.